So when you come up close, make sure you can hear. We're having the big audio doesn't cut it today. I don't know what's going on. So.
Welcome everybody. Today is Monday of a long weekend. We appreciate your time here at this hour. Those of us maybe not even most of us here on the East Coast at 7 p.m. A little bit thereafter. We appreciate you being here on an evening right before the work week is about to begin tomorrow. So thank you so much. We don't have a very long agenda, but we believe our agenda is always an important one. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. There is a QR code to the session slides. If you would like to snag that for yourself, we'll make sure that's available to you. And thank you, Veronica, for getting that up and going. We appreciate that. So welcome. First and foremost, the timing of the session this evening, as Dr. Sain just referenced, follows what was a very long and controversial topic in Boston. And I know a couple of us were watching that remotely. And so before we begin, if we could just take a little bit of time to reflect on that in a way that's important to you. This conversation, for those of you who are not aware, specifically related to the matter CESS at JRC, and it was a very tough couple of hours to listen to, and certainly a lot of food for thought going forward as we think about treating our patients, clients, and colleagues with dignity. So. If we would just take a moment to reflect on that in a way that's meaningful to you. Thank you. We do have these other items coming up on our agenda that we will scroll through today as we go through, and certainly at any point in time, this is a small group, so interjections, comments, questions. The informality is welcome, if not encouraged, as I tell students when I'm teaching as well. So jump on in, comment away, please join us. And while the group may be small and intimate, the work we do is mighty. So thank you for that. So welcome again for being interested and involved in what it is that we do. We certainly appreciate your support in being here. We have a couple of board members and former board members. But we greatly appreciate that you care about making these resources free, low cost, no cost, accessible, and dissemination in our discipline as it relates to that. So thank you. We've done this. Let me scroll on through here. So our mission, if you've been to our website, this is right out there at the beginning. And I've already referenced it, though not in this language, is really to look at the creation, adoption, and dissemination, importantly, of resources that are open educational resources. And by extension, that would also include things that are maybe not classified as open educational resources, true OER, but things that are open access, low cost, no cost in particular. And in aligning with that mission, you may already be aware that we are one of the SIGs that does not have any kind of dues for our members. We believe that that is a conflict to our mission itself. And so we have been committed to doing that and maintaining that as we go forward. Some of our specific goals, and these are items that are in our SIG documents. We want to make sure that while we are doing the work that we are doing, we are providing information about these quality, open, zero-cost training resources. We've had a fair mix at events that we've had of faculty, practitioners, and certainly we want these to be available to everyone, although I think the majority of the board, at least at inception, was involved in training and teaching the next generation of behavior analysts, and realizing that this is an area of need for us, that our students are already struggling to be able to access what they need at low cost or no cost. And these are some things that we can do to try and do that. We also want to make sure that we are providing a forum for some of these projects that we're able to do. We, in addition to wanting to create some of these opportunities and create some of these resources, we do acknowledge that some of the resources that we're sharing may not be about OER themselves, but certainly may be made accessible or zero cost, no cost to folks to be able to access. So I'd invite you to take a look at that. The submitting information, this is what we're continuing to try to do. I think perhaps one of the ways that we do that best is through our continuing ed events. Who doesn't love free continuing ed? And so that is often a great venue for us to be able to share information either about open resources or share resources openly. So making sure that we're doing our best to provide that as well. Have this annual meeting here as scheduled by ABAI for all of the SIGs. And so here we are this evening as a small intimate group to make sure we can do that as well. Veronica has kindly put together a little bit of history here. This predates my own involvement in the special interest group. And you can see we have not been around a particularly long time, but that a lot of our effort has been through social media, through the webpage. ABII has, published our little paragraph about what it is that we do and changes that we are working to address in our field. So a little bit of a summary here about what we've been doing and are working through our continuing ed events, I think primarily for dissemination. We do have some election information that we will share a little bit today as we move into our second major election for the SIG moving forward. So stay tuned here a little bit for that. So we do have upcoming events. I mentioned that our continuing ed events, I think, are a great way for us to get the word out about not only OER and what OER are, but also to share our resources openly and continue to add to the bank and the library of what's accessible out there for that. So here are some upcoming events. So if you're eager to know what is coming up right around the corner, we have our next CE event is on June 8th. That will be me talking about some of the fantastic work that we've done at our university for mitigating COVID in a behavioral context. As a member of our pandemic response team and why that's been, I would like to hope, an effective use of my skills on our team at the university. So we'll be talking a bit about that. Some other things, dates specifically to be determined, but much excitement about a continuing ed event on developing caring syllabi as we continue to align with our missions more broadly than just OER, but also what that has to do with diversity and accessibility and our values as a SIG. And then also, again, aligned with those same principles, something on accessibility for inclusion. I think Veronica, if I recall, they were the one who was going to take the leadership on that. So I'm excited for that coming around the corner as well. Our creator corner, Everybody Behaves open textbook. Maggie is on, and I think that is something that has been Maggie's baby, and we are certainly welcome, Maggie, if you want to at any point in time share with us a little bit about that and what's exciting. I would welcome you to do that, but I don't want to put you on the spot to have to do that either. I know you're
you let me know, Rachel. Dr. Potter, let me know when you want me to contribute my small piece. I'd be happy to share.
You go right ahead, Maggie. I know you've got a little one on your lap and dinner happening concurrently, so we'll work.
So I just wanted to share, I think the most exciting thing about this project that I am really, it's only a minute and I know you can hear my baby in the background, so I promise it's not long, but we have had more than 500 downloads and 50 countries. I think the countries part is the really exciting thing to me, because I feel like that's a really amazing way that we can reach folks that might not have access to our science through traditional graduate education. So it's been really neat. And we've also had it adopted into 4 graduate courses as a main textbook. So, supplementary to other things, not the only textbook, but that's been really exciting to see. So I think there's a lot more we can do with the learning experience of making it and kind of the lessons we took from the kind of support that a kind of project like this needs. But I think that's also led us to a really exciting upcoming project that might come out in the next 2 or 3 years that will be maybe more smoothly produced. And I'm excited to kind of share over the next couple of years the kind of lessons learned pieces and help other people kind of navigate that. So thank you guys for supporting this textbook and for getting excited about it, even though I don't think it's a perfect example of our field. I think it's a great model for what we could do better at doing, and it's still possible.
I am getting occasional words across my screen telling me that my internet connection is unstable. So please do, colleagues, let me know if that begins to impact the session or you. But I was able to hear most of what Maggie was able to share with us. And Maggie, perhaps we can follow up offline with you too. Maybe there's an event in and of itself about the lessons learned for putting something like this together. What you would have done differently, what you feel that you did that worked exceptionally well. And, I think there may be some opportunity there if you're willing down the road for us to talk about that a little bit further.
I would be happy to do so. And I think Dr. Howard could probably contribute with me a little bit on that topic. So I apologize too. My internet connection is a little funky. So if I missed the good point that I was supposed to make, I apologize, but thank you for following up and making it relevant.
Spot on, Maggie. Thank you. We do have election results to report in part this evening. This, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's the second major election, if you will, that the SIG has had since its inception. We had two positions for which we held elections. One was for president-elect, so I'm getting ready to go into my final year. So we'll have a president-elect who will take over from me this time next year. And then we also had a board member at-large position. And so I'm excited to share these results with you this evening. Our president-elect is Brian Middleton, who's on our executive board right now. And I'm sure if Brian were here, he would tell you that he's very excited to be in this role and is looking forward to more events, more voices, and highlighting our values as we go forward as a SIG, certainly are areas of passion for him. And then we have yet to be able to announce the results of the new board member election because we are waiting on confirmation emails to come back. So we're kind of tying up some loose ends there. So I'm afraid I cannot quite announce the results of that election just yet. But we will be excited to welcome Brian a year from now, where he will take over my seat as president of the special interest group. So a reminder of what our leadership is at this point in time, moving forward from today. I will continue one more year in my role as president. Brian Middleton, as mentioned just now, is our president-elect. Board members, Dr. Ryan Say, who's in the room right now, and Clint Evans. And one more, TVA and Veronica, our ever steady secretary treasurer. Not that we're dabbling much of the money end of things, but Veronica, please know that you are greatly appreciated and in many ways truly the backbone of what it is that we do to move our mission forward. So thank you. So let's talk a little bit about some OER work that's going on in our field. Want to make sure we call attention to this. So here we go. There's Dr. Pavone. Maggie, you're right up there at the top here in your special topics and behavior analysis. Downloads here. So good things happening here. And Maggie, are most of these folks here students of yours that have been part of this project?
Yeah, so this is almost entirely an OEP project. However, I want to say 4, maybe 5 of the chapters were completed, one by an adjunct and the others by folks that had to continue to do their work after graduation. So they were not students at the time. I don't know what that counts. You could probably give me the language better. I don't think that's OEP anymore if they're already off doing their own thing. But most of them had been students in the program at one time. Brandon May, who is now Dr. May, was an adjunct who also helped us with this project and contributed a chapter.
Fantastic, Maggie. Thank you so much. And I see that Brian, our president-elect, I just announced that election, has popped into the room. So Brian, good to see you here. I'm glad you can make it on a busy day. I know there've been a lot of sessions. We're glad you're here. We also have with Dr. Rachel White, capacity building for autism interventions, a field supervision program. Veronica, can I put you on a spot just a little bit if you can speak on this? I think you may be a little more familiar than I on this work, if you don't mind.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And I'm going to leave a space after presenting this just to have folks kind of chime in if we're missing anyone who wanted to speak up. So Dr. White is just one of our exceptional Alaska behavior analysts, and she is, in my mind anyway, the touchstone that I go to for super high quality supervision. And she has been building this package of resources, like how she trains her group in a cohort style model to go out there and do amazing work, and was generous enough to release this resource that was developed through partnerships. And we see it was funded by the Alaska Division of Women's and Children's and Family Health. It's part of the capacity building for autism interventions. This is one of the interventions that's come out of the Center for Human Development, which was founded by Todd Risley when he came back to Alaska. So it's got like a beautiful lineage and a wonderful resource just to give back to the world about how to support and foster growth for our next generation of behavior analysts. We're going to go out there and do exceptional clinical practical work. Very proud of this resource, and we'll try to be posting more resources like this, practical resources, things that folks can get into, really kind of wrap their head around or even use in the coming year. Leaving this space uncomfortably open.
Veronica, is that set to the tune of Comfortably Numb from Pink Floyd?
Very much so.
Very good. All
We'll be sure to leave a few more uncomfortably open spaces.
right.
Here's some screenshots from some of our recent CE events, just to share with you what's been going on. If you haven't been attending these, you've missed out on some good fun. And as a member of the SIG, you have access to view these offline as well. So if you see something here and you're like, oh man, I wish I had attended that. If you're a member of the special interest group, you have the ability to access these also, not for continuing ed credit when it's not synchronous, but certainly for your own benefit, your own education as well. So here are some of the topics that we've had in the last year plus. You see, we go back, I think, as far as October of 2020 on here, but with Dr. Nussbaum's presentation on hypothesis. But this is what we've had sort of in recent past, including one from our own Brian Middleton. Brian, we appreciated you doing that for us. I think in December, it may have been the day after you moved house, or the day before you were moving house, or while you were in the middle of moving house.
It was, I think, in the middle of moving house. Yeah. And I will be getting you the slides. I saw your email, so I thought I had sent them. Sorry.
No worries, Brian. It was just on my mind today while we were finalizing this, and I thought I'll reach out to you. So I appreciate that. But you're in a vehicle now, so certainly I wouldn't expect you to do it at this time. But thank you. We appreciate that, and appreciate your leadership on that.
On the note of being able to get CEs, I work closely with mindful behavior, and so if you want the CEs, I try to make sure that the price points are accessible to mindful behaviors. That's always a preference.
Appreciate your professional connections there, Brian. Thank you. And so this is another opportunity for one of those long, uncomfortable silences, which hopefully will be filled with voices of those who are here and not stay as one of those long, uncomfortable silences. But we certainly are interested to know what are some other things that you would like to see us do. Are there particular topics for continuing ed events of which you have interest, other opportunities for collaboration or publication that you want to share or offer to the group? I have had, just as an example, one of our recent presenters has reached out to me, very much enjoyed her time doing a continuing ed event for the SIG and would like to do another one at some point for us, something ethics related. And so we do know that there is interest out there beyond just those of us who are in the room for creating more of these, but certainly we would love to listen to and make note of and take action to do ideas that you have and you would like to share. So I will open up to one of those long, uncomfortable pauses again.
Yeah, one of the things, Dr. Potter, that I'd been interested in presenting was two different things I'd be interested in presenting. One of them was the link between EAB and ABA, and how it's one talk that I gave in Virginia, at Virginia ABA, but a modification of that to some degree. And the other thing that I'd like to talk about sometime this year would be the use of different empirical practices in teaching. Starting this fall, I will be incorporating interteaching into my asynchronous courses. In the past, I've used both a combination of programmed instruction and personalized system of instruction in our asynchronous scenarios. So I'm adding interteaching to see if that adds another layer of value. So I would like to talk about all of those things sometimes in the next year. So there's two things.
Brian, the thing that you and I spoke about on the phone a while back, where we talked about doing some panel discussions with some of the older guard behavior analysts and the newer folks, I would absolutely love to be able to facilitate or figure out how we get that going, because especially in light of the present challenges that we face in the field, I feel like perhaps dispelling the myth that this is old school versus new school, and perhaps going into maybe understanding that it's philosophical drift versus original philosophy.
I think that's a brilliant point, President-elect Middleton. For those of you that don't have the background, Brian and I spent a long 5-minute conversation. It turned into about an hour and a half on all sorts of philosophical and ethical issues related to our field, and looking at it from kind of a historical context. Specifically, what was Skinner, what was his position? And as a humanist, and how does that play out? And have we missed the point of what he was doing? And I think a lot of that came to play this afternoon in a very heated topic. So yes, Brian, I would absolutely love to participate and help facilitate that as well too, using all of our SIG's resources to pull in those that we have connections with to participate.
Jeffrey, please chime on in.
Okay, so I don't know how possible this will be for me, but one thing that I would be very interested in seeing, and it's something that we've been very successful, I think, in getting rolled out at the University of Alaska Anchorage, is some grassroots organizing for student organizations and that sort of thing, to get folks behind open education materials to begin with. And one of the things, the very successful things that we have been able to do this last year, even with all of the horribleness of COVID and everything else, is organize an on-campus student organization, club, if you will, called the Student Textbook Affordability Club at UAA, to try and take some of that student advocacy, that grassroots work, and carry it on through a student organization to do some of the advocacy work that some of our professors and teachers and professionals aren't able to do, based on their workload and their abilities and that sort of thing. And one of the ideas is to try to get that to help lobby the legislature, do some other further work in the future, because as we all know, a lot of times universities like to wait out the open, that wait until the faculty members that care about the free textbook materials or the open textbook material initiative is gone, the people that are passionate about it move on or go to some other place, and opening that up and teaching students that they can be part of that process to push that forwards, and also teach them how to be the most accessible to professors, to help them transition their stuff, give them support for their open materials, give them a reason to basically adopt open materials, because sometimes folks are unaware or unaware that there's a need for that, based on a separation from being a student, and being in academia for so long that they remember when, okay, yeah, it's this much, but who really knows how much anybody's spending on textbooks? And I say all of that with the caveat that I'm getting ready to start grad school in the fall, and I have no idea whether or not that's going to be in my wheelhouse. But that was something that I was definitely working on with Dr. Howard and Professor Hutchings for this last semester with our TASA program that student advisors, textbook affordability student advisors. And it's something that I really think without that student component, Open's just not going to be as successful without getting the students aware, educated, passionate, and behind it. I just don't know if that voice is going to be there. And so I would like to develop something for that.
I'm glad that you shared that, and my memory may be getting jogged just a little bit. Jeffrey, did you speak to your state legislature this year on this topic? I feel like I saw that, maybe.
I lobbied them. We have a state bill, Senate Bill 146, that got advanced this year to try and make a requirement for the universities to basically list course materials that are open for folks. And there's a lot of opposition from the university in general. A lot of it is based on, our computer system is old and it costs a lot of money to do this and that sort of thing. And so I was one of the student voices that was able to get in there and be like, well, even if it is old, you're already kind of doing this. So having a state mandate to do this isn't that much of a burden, but maybe you should also be looking at getting money to update your computer system if this is a problem with that sort of thing and asking. So yeah, I was part of the lobbying process as much as possible. Everyone knows that the legislative process can be a very long and involved thing. And so they've kind of kicked the can down the road to 2023 or later for a legislative adoption of open material mandates for letting students know what classes have open materials available. The universities are still doing it right now, but we want to get that enshrined in state law that those materials need to be out there for people to make an informed decision about their choices when it comes to these materials. Because if I can make an informed decision between one class that has an open textbook and another class that doesn't, that makes me not have to take extra courses or fill in that time, pay for that course by taking an extra job or do something else to try and figure out how I'm going to pay for those materials. And so ideally in the future, we're going to try to get enough cash to get some folks to Juneau to lobby the legislature directly, to lobby folks here. But that's one of those nice functions of the club. With the club, we can get university funding to travel and do club events. We can do fundraisers. We can do all sorts of things to try and get in there and do that. And it gives us a respectable, I guess, position to be able to go and perform that service for the other students.
Thank you, not only for sharing that, Jeffrey, but for your advocacy and a good reminder, the student voice. I'm getting ready to go into my 20th year of academia, and I can just see the sell to students of, well, it's really not a cost because it's wrapped up in your financial aid. Why are you worried about that? And I think we do a disservice when we don't educate our students about the impact of that debt and student debt. And so it's beyond, I think, matters of faculty, and it reaches into admissions and financial aid and doing what we can to truly educate students to best make those choices so that when they are looking at two comparable courses, one with a zero cost and one that isn't, they're making a decision that's right for them with knowledge and not a, but it doesn't matter because I have a book voucher. Because that book voucher is simply symbolic of further debt. And many of our younger students, I think in particular, don't have that level of fiscal literacy to understand that. And I think that is part of our role as educators, whether as an educator, you're a faculty member or a librarian or a financial aid counselor, that is part of our responsibility. So thank you for your involvement and voice in that.
Thank you. It's so much of that, and then it's also, you know, like I'm a veteran coming back to school and using the GI Bill, and so I have limitations that some people are like, oh, but you get books, you get a book stipend. Sure, I do. $500 a year or a semester, which, you know, that's okay in undergrad, but maybe in grad school, you know, that's not going to cut it for a lot of my text materials and that sort of thing. Or some folks can't buy certain books based on their financial aid package, you know, like they can't actually pay for those, or they're not allowed. If any course I have has an optional textbook, I'm not allowed to use it or pay for it. So even though it might help my student success in that. So that's totally, yeah, that's near and dear to my heart.
Thank you. Looking in the chat too, and there have been some comments in there with some other suggestions and some good humor in the process too. Uncomfortably open. Thank you, Veronica. I have to remember that hashtag. But certainly I'd encourage you to look there. It looks like we've had a member who's interested in more resources for supervision and teaching as well, and that might intersect very well also with, was it Rachel White's resource?
It's for you.
As well, or maybe some other things we can reach out to as well. So, so thank you for that, and ongoing at any point in time, please, you know, share areas of interest or individuals of interest. Hey, this would be a great person to please come and do something for us. We're happy to engage and sponsor. And our last CE event came about from somebody saying, hey, got this great person in mind. We'd, you know, love to have them do a continuing ed event. So we're very open to those sorts of things as well. So so thank you for that. So we're certainly happy to stay on, entertain further conversation and discussion. You know, stay in touch with us, follow us on social media for more events. Veronica has a couple more things to add, I think, before we wrap up. Please do.
Yeah, I was just hoping we could go back just one slide so we could still keep the conversation going. For a couple of reasons. First, I have interests. I have so many interests because one of the big changes that we've made that is just really exciting for me is not only do we focus on issues related to open and open educational resources and copyright and open licensing and open enabled pedagogy, right? Like all of the things within that stimulus class, if you will, of open, but now we're also shifting our focus into making content that maybe isn't in that stimulus class also open. So our last speaker, Dr. Sellers, was talking about, you know, how do you apply the performance diagnostic checklist, human services? And that's not in the stimulus class of open, but that resource is being shared as an open resource, which then further helps disseminate the field to folks who may not otherwise have access to it. And I think in a very, very, very user-friendly way. One of my greatest disappointments at not being able to attend Boston this year is not being able to see all of the really amazing presentations that have taken place, including things like the panels of participants. So there were things like, you know, how to better support LGBTQ representation in the field, or the folks who are in our field, who are in the community, what supports do they need from us, from colleagues to bring their whole selves into their work. And I'd like to see something like that reflected here, or some of the presentations by students who are just coming through that cost, like they're toward the end of their PhD program and they're transitioning out of grad school. I'd like to see some of their presentations, because you know that it's exceptional work, very high quality, peer reviewed, and you know, many times relevant current topics that are important to our field. So those are some things that I'd like to hear about. I might also like to, I'd like to hear what folks in the room might be interested in. And again, no pressure. I just want to create a space, an opportunity. Who are you? What brings you here? We're so happy to see you. Tell us everything about you. And what are you interested in?
I can repeat if you want me to, or you can come up here and so they can hear you.
For me personally, culture and behavior,
Mhm.
culture and groups,
Culture and what? I'm sorry.
and belonging to different groups. And
Oh.
how we practicing them. Those are the two I'm really curious about them and really want to have more access to those topics. I want to, as possible as there was presentation on that, there was not really something that I want.
So just correct me if I'm wrong. So linking up the concepts of culture and belongingness into an open approach to where we can share that with others and build on those experiences that you have and others have. Is that correct, or is that close?
The topics that are as well, the topics about cultures and belonging, especially for teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the things that, because they were talking about new concept, and that's why when I looked at it, oh, that's maybe they have something about that.
Perfect. Yeah.
that's-
So culture, Veronica, I don't know if you're able to hear that clearly, but culture and belonging, especially at the teenage level, is definitely the topic that we have interest in the room.
Yeah, well, and it's such a good topic. I mean, I think maybe Jeffrey could speak to some of this, but
that's choices make all their future.
Mhm.
and
Yep. So focusing on the choice level. Hit that.
focus.
Two things that I have ready to go to present on whenever the SIG is willing to host it is acceptance and commitment therapy through the very behavior analytic lens. My nickname for it is actually for BCBAs. So basically we're framing ACT in a very verbal behavior, self-management contingency perspective. And the other one is I just did it, and for mentorology through Brett Denovi and Associates. And after I do a presentation, I clean it up and update it further and improve it. And so I have discrimination for BCBAs, discrimination training for BCBAs, neurodivergent affirming practice. So that might help a little bit with the culture of inclusion and addressing possibly. But both of those are ready to rock and roll whenever you guys want me to present them.
You know, thank you from the room.
You've been seeing me lose my eye contact here to look to the side. It's because I'm taking notes. So I thank you for your patience as I've been doing that. I've got a piece of paper with me and I'm jotting down all these wonderful ideas that you're sharing. So thank you. And offering.
Eye contact is overrated.
Thank you, Brian. Anything else in this moment of uncomfortable silence that you'd like to fill? Other ideas? One thing, I think, Maggie, you had commented in the chat about more related to interdisciplinary work. And I'm glad that you have mentioned that. And, you know, I know at our university, a lot of our faculty in arts and sciences in particular have become more interested in what it is this ABA department is, because we have very steadily become one of the larger departments on campus. And I actually had one of our studio art faculty a couple of months ago come up to me and say, tell me more about ABA and how could we like maybe co-teach a 3-week, we have this 3-week May term, you know, what's something we could do together? And I have to admit, that one put me on the spot. Because had it been criminal justice or psychology or maybe history or health science, like there are so many disciplines I could have jumped at right on the spot. But boy, on the one hand, studio art threw me for a loop, but on the other hand, I was so pleased to have this faculty member in another discipline ask that question. And so I reserve the right to think on it and get back to Jim, but I love the fact that our discipline is as interdisciplinary as it is. And what a great opportunity we have as colleagues, not only to do interdisciplinary work in our discipline, but for those of us who are passionate about open ed to, if you like this analogy or not, to preach that gospel in the context of what it is that we are doing in that interdisciplinary work. So Maggie, I thank you for that reminder and memory jog that I owe an answer back to the chair of our studio art department.
We got to send the chair the research from Karen Pryor on creativity and dolphins. I think that would be the way to go with that.
Yeah.
And to be creative, maybe we could use that in art school.
Well, and the role of extinction on.
Ooh, ouch, shushies.
I mean, you can see so many examples. I'm just thinking of those nice, good mythical fellows, and they're like, oh, I'm going to try everything to see what hits. Well, you know, returning to the idea that was shared in the room, that idea of like relationships, critical evaluation of relationships, because if we approach it from the perspective that the quality of a relationship is commensurate with the amount of reinforcement in it, maybe some activity programming related to a critical evaluation of the amount of reinforcement, say at an institutional or organizational level, the role of establishing boundaries and communicating values, and what to do when the folks who are within your, we'll call it social circle, maybe don't share your values.
Just to be clear, we do, in the interest of time, we do have 2 minutes left in our allotted slot.
I have one thing that I want to suggest, since we were talking about creativity and collaboration, all that good stuff. Open ed, open mic night.
Ooh.
We need comedy, we need poetry, we need music, we need to have fun. And we need to teach behavior analysis through.
I love it, Brian.
Yep.
Open ed, open mic. That'll be the next hashtag for sure.
I do, Jeffrey. I remember fun.
Fun. What is that?
That's a requirement I have every day.
Dr. Sane is fun embodied.
That's funny.
That too. That also. All right. Well, given our time here, our allotted official time with ABAI, we'll go ahead and mark an official conclusion and a cessation to our recording. But for those who'd like to stay on a few more minutes, certainly for collegial banter, I would welcome that. But Dr. Howard, if you would stop our recording at this time.